All right, good evening. Welcome to the Township Board of Trustees Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, January 7th. Mr. Guzek, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's just proper grammar, powers education.
With that, we will call the meeting to order and ask for an approval of the agenda. However, for Thursday's agenda, I'm going to ask that we add one item to that, and that's everybody received the job description for the administrative assistant. We had approved doing this, but we need to have the board approve the employment agreement. So if we could put that on for Thursday's agenda.
Under item E, sir?
Let's see, we'll put it under, sure, under operational issues, item E.
The other thing
Okay.
for Thursday is I sent out the 3 sets of minutes, so
Yeah.
we should be putting those in
Okay.
before public comment.
All right. So we'll add the minutes, Mr. Limita, to
Yep, I'll have
as
those, I'll add those in if the board wants that, and then the other item, and then we'll print out new ones and put it into the packet before Thursday.
okay. Everybody okay with those two things?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add
Yes.
something else.
Sure.
For Thursday, I received, at least I guess everybody else received a couple of memorandum of understanding. Can we put that on the agenda?
We're going to talk about that tonight, actually, the memorandum of understanding. We got it on the agenda.
Which one?
That's right
For
here.
Parks and Rec?
I don't know if that's one Joe's.
That's not,
Right here. Memorandum of Understanding, Parks and Rec.
I'm not talking about Parks and Rec. We received some others. We received one from Attorney Laddie and one from Attorney,
Yes, we have it on the agenda for, right here under privilege presentation. We have Aaron Graves,
okay,
and Dave will give his.
okay, so it's on there.
Thursday.
So it's on there,
Yep.
okay,
But he's also going to give an update. Well, we'll go over that when we go through the agenda.
okay.
Okay, so everybody good with the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Oh, second?
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will open the floor for public comment at this time. Okay, seeing no public comment, we will move on to the first item on the agenda after public comment, which is we would like to consider a motion to approve the amended memorandum of understanding concerning parks, concerning the operations of Parks and Recreation between the Grand Blanc Community Schools and the City of Grand Blanc and ourselves. So,
That's a move.
okay, there's a motion,
Support.
there's support. Mr. Laddie?
Can I add just one comment to this? And
Absolutely.
I'm very excited to have this moving forward at this time. And I had a conversation with Mr. Griffin at about 4 o'clock today, and he wanted me to clarify something that I think we already all understand, and that is that at the heading of the memorandum, we identify the fact that the city and township and schools have entered into a joint resolution, and that this memorandum of understanding is to serve as the terms of operation until such time as that resolution is amended by the 3 parties. And it may continue on for as long as that joint resolution takes, and it's my expectation that probably that joint resolution will end up looking a lot like this memorandum of understanding as we begin to implement and take these terms live. And so I think he had a question from one of his council members, and that was to clarify just, and I'll read this last sentence to you that's in the heading. The parties now wish to mutually amend the previous resolution, period. The terms of this agreement shall supersede and control until such time as that resolution is amended. And then you'll also note that item number 13 says, though, that this memorandum of understanding may be terminated by any party upon a 30-day written notice provided to all parties. And where that would leave us operationally, the Parks and Rec Commission would essentially be dormant a lot like the fire commission is now, because we're operating, we've transitioned the fire department under a memorandum of understanding, and we're still waiting for the final accounting. This process will be essentially the same. And so, once we adopt these terms, and I think the city will adopt these terms tomorrow night, we're transitioning the operations into the township. Township is the employer of record. We're responsible for Creasy, they're responsible for their properties, and all the terms are live, and they stay live until such time as we've amended the joint resolution or one of the parties have withdrawn from the MOU. And he just wanted that clarified, because he's he wanted to know what's going to happen immediately, and then what's going to happen midterm, and what will happen in long term.
Right.
Is that clear with everybody?
Yes. Mr. Mansur?
So I have two questions about that. First, so what happens in the event that one of the parties kind of unilaterally pulls out of the MOU?
If one of the parties pulls out of the MOU, then the operations of Parks and Rec and of the facilities is going to continue pursuant to the MOU for the parties that remain. And so we have 3 parties to the MOU, and it's going to carry on.
So that doesn't put us in any kind of a limbo if someone just chooses
Correct.
to back out?
Nope.
Okay. The second question I had here is just to clarify, there's been some miscommunication or something out in the airwaves about the type of continuing advisory board that is envisioned by this memorandum of understanding. Can you just review for us here, Attorney, please,
Sure.
the term that regards that?
Sure. That's paragraph 11, and it says the parties may create a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to provide recommendations for programming, master planning, and special events, etc. Each party may appoint 1 member to the advisory committee. No appointee may be an elected official or employee of the community schools, the city, or the township. And this advisory committee, if it's created, is only going to serve the purpose of providing recommendations for programming, special events, and or master planning, but relating primarily to programming, right? Because each of the parties has their own facilities. We're handling the programming for Creasy Park and the schools. The city's handling their own programming. So if this committee is created, it only serves a recommendation purpose, and it's non-binding in every respect.
Thank you, that's what I recall, I just wanted to be sure.
Mr. Guzak?
Yeah, I just had a question for Mr. Laddie. On item 2, it talks about, the senior center.
Yep.
And it talks about the maintenance now, the building and grounds are going to be maintained by the senior millage monies. And I think in the past, part of our, I'm not sure, and that's why I was checking for clarification. I thought some of our contribution, or is it always been that way? Or if there's not enough in that fund, what happens? Does it go back to the owners of the property, which we're 50% owner and the city's 50% owner?
Right. When we talk about the building of the senior center, we both own that 50-50.
Right.
And we both have obligations for the maintenance and upkeep to that building. The idea is that millage money and program revenue will pay for the operation and, to the extent, maintenance of the senior center tied to operation.
Right.
I think that...
But right now, that's not the case, right? I think we give extra money now and again.
Right. I'm looking at a copy of your senior budget. This has figures for January through December, and I think it's for last year. And it shows a township contribution of $2,370 and a city contribution of $1,245. I think that if to the extent that is for a capital improvement to the building, we're going to split those costs 50-50. Right. If that contribution is for something other than that,
right,
then and it's not covered by CDBG funds or the senior millage, then we're gonna be looking to try to save that money and try to be more efficient and make that place operate so that no contribution is required.
right. But my question, I guess, is if for some reason they can't maintain it properly because the funds aren't there, they're used other ways, can we at least bring it back up so that we'd have our proportion, we'd pay our portion, the city would pay their portion to maintain it so that it doesn't destroy the building or affect the facility? I mean, that would be worst case. Hopefully their budget will cover it.
The capital improvements, there's a description that requires that the senior center is owned jointly and that the city and township with capital improvements are going to maintain that
Well, I know we do
and we're
on-
splitting it.
I know we do on the capital improvements, but the general maintenance, it's saying they've got to cover it. If they can't cover it, we're still going to step in, right? Or are we hampered from stepping in?
We are, anything that's relating to the building or grounds, we're going to split 50/50. Anything relating to programming,
So that could be maintenance on the building.
if it's not operational maintenance, if it's not cleaning supplies or things like that,
Okay.
then that's going to come out of the revenue from the millage.
Right, but if that revenue
If-
runs out,
If a wall falls down in the building, we're
Well,
splitting the
yeah.
cost of the wall.
well, I know that, but I was saying if for some reason the revenue runs out, we're still going to be able to go in and ask the city to put their portion in and our portion
Well,
to maintain it,
of the
right?
millage?
If the millage money isn't sufficient and somehow,
Uh-uh.
no,
Nope.
that's why my question is.
We're not. We're taking on the operation of that senior center, and we're going to use the millage money, and we're going to do it without contributions, hopefully from us or the city, and we're splitting the cost of the building 50/50.
Okay.
If the millage money runs out, there'd be a few other senior centers that have issues too.
Well, there'll be a lot of changes.
Right.
But it's a county millage, so.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Massey?
The 30 days for a party to pull out of the agreement, but let me ask you a question. I have a concern about that. Not so much the 30 days. At the beginning of the year, each entity will prepare, I'm making an assumption here, a budget.
Well, we're going to be doing the budget. Township will do the budget. Then we're
Okay.
going to send it over to the city and the schools for their review, not their approval, but their review.
Oh, just for their review?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So once they agree and they give a 30-day notice, whatever, they're responsible for their part up until,
Yeah, let's take that, let's take as an example, let's say the city says, well, and this is a little bit, I don't know, this is all new ground, right?
Yes.
We're just trying to imagine.
yes,
But let's say, the only situation, obviously if the schools at some point decide to pull their facilities out, they say, we don't want to be a part of the MOU, there's still, if we go back to the terms of the original joint agreement, there's still potentially an obligation for them to put their facilities in play. But the situation that I can envision the most is, let's say the city decides to pull out of this agreement. And so all of a sudden that 11% becomes in play, right? The 11% of the
Yes.
programmer. If that's the case, then there may be changes to programming. There may be changes to fees. And we'll decide what those changes are.
okay. My follow-up question to that, that would just be Parks and Rec Park. It couldn't pull out from the senior center.
Not from ownership of the senior center, but we're going to run the senior center lock, stock, and barrel.
Oh, okay.
By the way, that's a pretty good concession on your part. I mean, that's a community service, that's a good point of community service, that you guys have taken on the responsibility to operate that efficiently, and hopefully it's self-sufficient, but you guys should be given some credit for taking on that responsibility.
Okay. Any further questions, Mr. Laddie, with the memorandum of understanding for Parks and Rec? We normally don't vote on things, but the city council, I understand, has a meeting tomorrow night that we wanted to be able to send this memorandum of understanding to them. And so I would ask that we have a motion, and it's been seconded, so this is just, Mr.
Chair, I
Massey.
have another question.
Okay.
I have a greatly concern here, not so much about the memorandum of understanding. Let me ask the board a question. and the attorney also. What are we expecting from the city tomorrow? We
To approve
approve.
this agreement, this one right here, the memorandum of understanding.
Okay, good. I like what you said. So now, I got a follow-up question. What happens if the city doesn't approve?
And we don't have a deal.
But this is, they gave this to us and said, here,
Yeah.
this is what we agreed to. So tomorrow is a
Oh, it
formal
came
item.
from the city.
This version has been reviewed by the city attorney, and they haven't had a meeting, right, to decide on this particular version. But he's going to present it with his proposed changes that I assume didn't just come from him. I assume he had some direction from some of the administrative staff at the city. But it's my expectation that this will pass at the city tomorrow night. And also it has to be submitted to the schools as well. The schools have said all along that if you guys work it out and there isn't any loss of service,
Right.
we'll carry on the way we are.
Mr. Mansell?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What's the status of the school? So would you envision, once the city approves it, that the schools would pretty quickly
Yes.
complete?
Yeah. And I think, Mr. Supervisor, you agree that that's been their position.
Yeah, they said that they agree with it as long as the city would and the township agree on it.
And they've seen this.
So with that, let's move forward on a vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ken or Mr. Thomas?
Dennis, did you change the Wi-Fi so I can't connect?
Do you have the password?
Well, I've never had a problem. Al can't connect now either. Can you connect?
Yeah, I'm online.
I'm on as well.
Took me 5 minutes. I just got on.
Yeah, actually I just connected a new computer and it connected fine. You guys have the password? I'll write it down. and
Has it
pass down.
changed?
It's just guest, right?
Isn't it just a guest one?
No.
I'll pass it down to you.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you had it. I thought you
Okay.
had your own personal
So it has
password.
changed.
No,
different.
it's the guest password. Okay,
Okay.
just 2 seconds here.
Mine keeps on saying connect.
It doesn't connect, I agree. Okay.
So this passed, which I'm pleased about. We'll see what the city does tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll get down to business.
Yes.
This would be a good stroke to get completed and behind us.
Exactly.
Burn it.
Okay, so we will, we also have plenty of written reports. I don't know, may have asked the fire chief on Thursday to go through his annual report. It's all of you received in the packet. I saw when the news stations actually did some reporting on our first 6 months. But anyways, reviewing Thursday's agenda, Mr. Massey asked if we were going to cover the written opinions, and we'll do that under privileged presentation. Laddie will as well.
Excuse me, could I be a little bit more specificity around that?
Yep,
So-
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So anyways, Aaron Graves, who is our labor attorney, actually will update us. We did have we did negotiate successfully a agreement with the firefighters this past year, and he'll bring us up to speed on how that went. And also, right now, we're in the middle of negotiations with our police union, and we could possibly have an agreement, is that correct, Dennis, by Thursday maybe?
We're open to bring something to the board for Thursday, but that depends on how Thursday's negotiations go.
Okay, with the police. So he'll bring us up to speed on that, and I asked him for some input since he helped draft, or did draft, the hiring policy to speak to that as well. Mr. Mansour?
Yeah, so I was just, so I'm glad to get an update on the firefighter and the police negotiations, especially the police ones have been going on for quite some time, and we haven't had any indication that there's any blip along the way here, so expect that should go pretty quickly. The other topic there related to hiring policy, I guess I'm not sure why we would, what the purpose of that is. I mean, I understand that there was a opinion requested, not by the board, but brought from Bodman on this, and while I certainly appreciate their expertise on labor contracts, I'm not sure that we want to continue to kind of look for other outside opinions when we're trying to address a municipal item that our attorney has already weighed in on.
I asked him to weigh in on it since he helped draft and we asked him to draft the policy. I don't see what harm it would give to.
Who's we?
Who?
To have him.
Yeah, I guess.
Who's we?
I did. We, the board, had him draft it and we approved it. So this, when I say we approved it, that means this board.
Approved what?
Our hiring policy.
I got a question for Mr. Laddie. Does he have the authority to do that, Mr. Laddie?
Well,
I know on the other stuff, but I'm talking about that other comment, that other item that he commented on and gave us information on.
well, so my recollection was the board, I think it was your December 10th meeting, asked me for an opinion regarding particularly the personnel issues as they were going to relate to the Parks and Rec director job description and hiring and supervision. And I presented that opinion to you, and that wasn't just Mr. Bennett, but also other members of the board asked for that opinion. And then I think there was an opinion submitted by Bodman, and Mr. Supervisor Bennett has indicated that he requested that opinion. And so my opinion was, the authority for my opinion came from the Township Board, who I represent. Bodman represents the Township Board as well. And I don't recall the board necessarily asking for an opinion from Bodman.
Yes, Mr. Atkins.
I find it very unprofessional that Bodman Law Firm would write a conflicting opinion in compared to our municipal attorney. You know, we hired Mr. Laddie, and he's an expert in municipal law. Bodman does labor law. I would have thought that there'd be a higher level of professionalism, and Bodman would have refused to write that and referred us to our attorney, Mr. Laddie. I'm very shocked that law firm would step outside of their lane and do that.
Actually, Mr. Laddie and Mr. Graves actually spoke before either opinion was written. And,
No, their opinion was written.
Was it?
And
Okay.
mine had not been written.
Okay.
When I was asked to call Aaron.
Right. So the bottom line was that
Who asked you to call?
excuse me, let's go through the chair.
Okay,
So
who asked you
anyways-
to call? You interrupted Attorney Laddie, so let's finish what Attorney Laddie said. Who
Excuse me,
asked
I'm
you
running
to
the meeting
call?
here, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Laddie?
I had a conversation with Supervisor Bennett.
Can you sponge on that? Because I kind of missed something.
He indicated that Bodman, Aaron Graves at Bodman was gonna review this issue and Supervisor Bennett asked me to call Aaron at Bodman. I called Aaron at Bodman the next day. He'd already written his opinion. He gave me a thumbnail sketch of what was in his opinion, and his opinion was done, I think, on December 12th. And so I had a conversation with him. But I didn't ask him to weigh in. I mean, I was just responding to the request made of me to call him.
And I don't think either one felt as though they were mutually exclusive. I think my conversation with Mr. Laddie and with Mr. Graves was that they felt similarly. So I don't see them as opposing opinions. My conversation was that they were very similar. But anyways, the bottom line is that Mr. Graves does work for more than just labor law with unions or what have you. He is very skilled in municipal law and employment. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had him draft the hiring employment policy for the board.
Mr. Chair,
And my question to him was how this policy is affected by our decision to go a different route. It wasn't necessarily on the statute, but on our policy and how his opinion on that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Massey.
let me say something, and very clearly. You, Mr. Chair, you clearly violated the board's agreement. Now, let me tell you how you violated the board agreement. Let's go back a couple of years ago. This discussion came up, and I want to refresh in the board's memory, okay? I'm gonna take a deep dive. That was a discussion about going outside of the board attorney. This was months ago. I'm not talking about last year, it was year before last. Someone may remember that. And we clearly shot that down. Said, no, we have one voice for the board, and that's the board attorney. You violated that trust at that time. Now, you cannot go out and just ask an attorney to come in and write a lie. What he wrote was a lie. It was quite clear. It was a lie. He disagreed with the Michigan Township Association attorney. That's right. What he wrote was a lie.
I didn't see that.
Well, you don't want to see that because you asked him to write it, and you was out of order to ask him to write it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bod, Aaron Graves, who works for Bodman, is actually on retainer for the township.
He's not on the retainer to speak for the board. He's on the retainer for labor.
No, but he's
you
not.
asked him to go out and really write an opinion on the authority of the board. And it's clearly that the board has the authority to hire and fire. Okay, now those duties and responsibilities is given to the superintendent to go out and exercise his authority that has been given to him by the board to hire employees, and also if he has the power, if it's deemed necessary, the superintendent has the authority to fire. But also, overriding that, the board has the last say. Now you can say what you want to. I'm speaking truth. You have overstepped your boundary, Supervisor. Now, why you do that, you know what you have done? You have made this entire board look like they're nobody. You have the authority to do whatever you want to without coming to the board. And as I recall, I want you to correct me. It started out reading, the board asked me to do this. Did it say that?
I don't remember.
Did it say that?
I don't remember. I don't have a copy in front of me.
It said the board asked me to do this. The board hasn't asked Attorney Graves to do anything. You asked him.
Yeah.
So, well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question right now. Because you slapped me in the face. Regardless of the rest of them, you slapped me in the face. So what happened if I go out and ask an attorney to write an opinion? You wouldn't like that. You wouldn't like that. If one of the board members went out and sought an attorney to write an opinion, that's a slap in the face to the board members, and also that's disrespectful to the board attorney. That's my personal opinion, and I'll stand behind it.
Okay. Any other comments?
I do.
Mr. Thomas?
When you said that you think that these are similar, Attorney Laddie, these are not similar statements between yourself and our labor attorney. You know, the labor attorney is saying that we're breaking state law, and I was wondering, can you tell me how we're breaking state law?
You're not breaking state law.
Well, then why did this attorney say we're breaking state law?
I don't know. And
But it's
the
not
other
an
thing,
opinion. He put it down.
It's his
that-
opinion. It's his opinion.
I don't know why he said that, because, and the other thing is, what's interesting to me is the MTA has weighed in on this and prepared a pretty comprehensive memo on this topic, and they agree with my findings. So I don't know why he says that.
So we're not breaking the law?
You're not breaking the law.
I think the summary of what he said is that we can do it. There's no problem, but he would urge us not to because of liability concerns.
Well, and he makes, and again, he makes points about the best policy, right, and best practices. And I don't have any disagreement with that. You're not, what you propose to do is not against the law.
Right.
But in his statement, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I think what, like you said in summary, you can do what you want on this, that you're probably not breaking any laws, and even your summary was that it's not advisable.
I agree.
And that's what he said, is that it's not advisable. Mr. Thomas?
When I read it, it says in the paragraph that you are breaking the law. It doesn't say anything obscure or obtuse about it, unless I'm missing something. Is that what you read?
That's what I got from it.
In the Bodman opinion,
Yes, in the bottom.
I respectfully disagree with him.
Mr. Atkins?
I'm just concerned by, opinion or not, I just wonder if there's other things that, potentially we could be getting misled on with this law firm.
Okay.
Do you want to hash this out now or wait until Thursday when he drives down there?
So anyways,
Can I ask you,
yes, Mr. Thomas?
have we incurred any cause for this attorney to write this opinion?
I don't know. I imagine there is a cost. But he's on retainer for us, so.
But when Superintendent Limita hired him, I thought that he was on a
It was our board that
retainer.
hired him.
Pardon?
It was our board that hired him, but
Well, we hired him on because he was friends with whoever from up north. But don't we pay him on a retainer and then anything else on top, we pay by piecemeal?
So first, for just point of clarification, I'm not friends with anyone from Bodman. I had familiarity with them because I've worked with them
Okay.
for the
Well,
past 12 years.
it's not a point to me, I just wondered if
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's
Okay,
not.
sorry.
And then you pay him per his contract. He gets paid by the hour, or their firm gets paid by the hour. There's different rates for different attorneys, different, if it's legal or whatever. But you pay by the hour. So yeah, you paid an hourly rate when we use Aaron. And again, their specialty is our labor law. So that's where the board should turn to him for specific labor questions. That's where their expertise is.
I'm sorry, Treasurer Kuzak, what did you say?
So could we get a cost breakdown of what it cost us for that then? Because he could break it out, because they know,
I'm sure if we've already been billed for it, I'm sure I already have it in my office. I can certainly tell you what it cost you to,
because I think it was $250 an hour plus travel time plus everything else, right?
there's no travel time, so it'd be $250 an hour, or whatever portion of that hour it took for him to research and write the issue.
Yeah, I would just like to have a total cost of what that total issue cost us.
I got another question.
Okay. Next item on the agenda under operational.
Just another question.
Mr. Atkins?
Have we done this in the past? Had the labor attorney come in and give us an update on contract negotiations, or is this?
We haven't with Bodman, but we have with our Keller Tome, our former law firm, came in 3 years ago when they were representing us.
This board's never seen him.
Is that covered within that retainer? Is that part of the package, or is this a separate?
He's already going to be here on Thursday for negotiations, because we have negotiations scheduled for all day on Thursday.
Okay.
So, excuse me, one more comment here. I guess I would be very interested in hearing the situation with the firefighters and the police, but I would propose to limit the privileged presentation to those two topics. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, since he's here anyway.
I agree with that.
It's regarding our policy, so I mean, if we're going to suspend our policy, then I think we need to get a legal opinion on suspending it. And that's what I asked him for, is not necessarily a legal opinion on the statute, but on the policy. So if we don't want any explanation as to why we would get rid of our hiring policy, then
I don't want to.
I think that it's a mistake to eliminate a policy that we put in place and not listen to our attorney that helped draft it to say why we may not want to get rid of it. I think one of the things that you saw in that opinion was that he believes that you're shedding some of your governmental immunity by taking on the responsibility of the HR and the HR responsibilities. I brought up that the city even voiced concern when I was at the last Parks Commission meeting that we were taking the Parks responsibility away from a commission that we complained was not professional and leading us into liability. And they were concerned that we were going to do the same thing with bringing it here to the township, that our board was going to form a committee that was going to oversee it, and that we weren't going to have the professionals doing the hiring and the supervision. And so I felt, and I believe that it's in my prerogative, that I can act in the best interest of the township and seek legal opinion if I believe that our township is in jeopardy. I think that by eliminating the employment or the hiring policy that we put in place less than a year ago, I believe, by eliminating that, we are putting the township at risk. I think we put it in place to limit our liability, and I see no reason why we don't want to hear from the attorney that helped draft that and encouraged it as to the concerns with eliminating it. And that's why I sought the opinion.
So, Mr. Chair, may I ask
So
you-
it was an opinion on that policy, not on the statute. The
May I-
the opinion that Mr. Laddie wrote was based on the statute.
not,
Yes, Mr. Massey.
not about something you just said. I'm offended by something you just said from a professional point of view. Now, let me tell you what you just said. You went back, we've had problems negotiating with the city. Now you bring the city into play and use the city as an example that, hey, the city has some concerns about the board. So where do you stand? Basically, that's clearly what I heard you say. So now I want you to explain to me, you're gonna come to this board, and I know everybody's background practically on this board, and I would go out on a limb and say, this is the most professional board probably ever been in place as a whole. I don't know what happened in the past, but I will go out on the limb and speak truth, okay? For you to bring the city in to justify your behavior, that's a degrade to, you're degrading the board. We haven't gotten along with the city on anything. So why would you use the city as an example? That's the way I see it. I've done this for many years.
I'm raising one of the concerns that they brought forward
Why would you raise a concern?
because I share
So
the
now you
concern.
jumped on the city side
I share the
against
concern.
the board.
No, I think.
Yes, you have. You're on the city
Okay, I'm
side.
not going to argue. Are you done making your point?
Did you hear what I said?
Are you done making your point?
I made my point based on what
Okay.
you said.
I'm not
You
going to
have
argue.
turned your back on the board and
Okay.
you are on the city side. That's what you said. I'm just going on
When
what
you're
you
done
said.
speaking, let me know.
I finished.
This board had grave concerns with regard to the unprofessionalism of the Parks Commission. And that was the primary reason for us bringing it in-house. It wasn't just a concern that I had and the city had. It was a concern that we had and we brought it to the city. So yes, I do share the concern that we want to make sure that it's professional and that it's run professionally. And I think this whole board shared that concern. It just wasn't my opinion. Mr. Thomas.
We're talking about the hiring process that Attorney Graves co-authored, but yet we asked Attorney Laddie, our attorney for the township, to give his opinion on our hiring process, and Attorney Laddie, in part of it, stated that the way we are hiring police, fire, is wrong. The way that we're doing it is gray.
The common theme in the hiring processes between Bodman's opinion and mine is that the township board is the undisputed authority on hiring police and fire and an assessor. Police and fire doesn't get hired without this township board's approval. Now, the point at which you get involved, I think that's what we're having this discussion about Parks and Rec, and you could also, I guess, have that discussion about the police if you wanted to, but there are lots of reasons why the process is set up the way it's set up, and Mr. Limita explained that pretty clearly on December 10th. So I'm not saying that the way we have it set up is wrong. I'm just saying that you're involved in it fairly late in the game, but it's again, one of the undisputed issues with Bodman and me is that the Township Board hires and fires police and fire.
And Bodman's report doesn't say that. It says that if we are that involved with the hiring and firing process, that we're breaking state law.
Well, they conclude, well, I think, and again, from what I gather of their opinion, they're making the assumption that the state statute has given hire and fire authority to the township supervisor and or the township superintendent, if there is one. And that any disruption or any change in that authority by the board diminishes the authority of the supervisor and or the superintendent. And that's where I and the MTA disagree with him on that. We don't believe that a personnel director has the authority to hire and fire independent of any ordinance or any specific resolution from the township board granting that authority to the supervisor and superintendent.
I would concur with Trustee Mansour to limit the attorney from Bodman to just the fire and the police contracts, and not to, for the sake that there are two different opinions. Our attorney, the board's attorney, gave us one opinion, and that's the one that I think I don't see why we would want to embarrass our own attorney.
I have a question.
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I'll direct this question to Attorney Ladd. As a street lawyer, when lawyers write opinion, and our attorney does likewise, when he writes an opinion, he put the MCL normally in there for further detailed information, may I say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Here is as a street lawyer I'm speaking, first thing I noticed, the supervisor's guy writing an opinion what the state law says, but he never provided the MCL of that law. So that's just like a lawyer. Now, I've had this to happen, and lawyers do this. I don't want to step on my attorney here, but lawyers do this. They go to court. They say things that are not really true, and if you catch the bait, you fall into the trap. So what the guy has done is stated something about something that is true, but is not true about the statute of the Michigan Township Association law. Okay? Now, he could have been quoting something, this is hypothetical, okay, about a city. A city doesn't fall under the same guidelines as a township does. Okay? So he being the labor attorney, didn't differentiate between those two laws. So he just left it open for interpretation. That's the way I interpret it, attorney. Weigh in on it for me, please.
Well, you're right. Lawyers' opinions, you as many lawyers as you have in the room, you'll have that many opinions, right? And you'll have that many takes on policy. First of all, we've got a lot of things in play. We've got state statute. We have contracts for our superintendent. We have a policy also. And so all those things are in play on this particular issue. I was asked by the township board as a whole to write an opinion. I took my time. I researched not just our policy and not just the state law. I also included references to the laws I reviewed. I included a Michigan Court of Appeals case that coincidentally, and by the way, I wrote my opinion without reviewing the MTA's opinion on this topic. And I presented my opinion to you on December 17th. And then, because it's always a good idea in township law, because of the Red Book, to take a look at what the MTA may have said. And the MTA's opinion essentially is the same as mine. I have 100% confidence in the opinion that I wrote. I respectfully will have differences. I think they're more details than anything, but I'll have differences with Bodman, and I respect their ability. no question about it. But I can tell you, as the township attorney for this township for at least 18 years, and in some capacity for up to 29 years, I'm doing what's best in the best interest of Grand Blanc Township. And my client is Grand Blanc Township. It's not the supervisor, it's not the superintendent, it's not any of you individually. It's Grand Blanc Township as a whole. And before I sat here for 18 years, my father sat here for 40 years. We've always done what's in the best interest of Grand Blanc Township. And if that opinion, if people want to disagree with that opinion, that's fine. And I appreciate the people that say, I don't want to disrespect our township attorney. I appreciate that, but again, my job is to argue with people. My job is to take positions that sometimes aren't accepted by everybody, and I stand by my opinion. I personally don't think you need to hear from any other lawyer. The opinion that you asked to give, you were given. It was confirmed coincidentally, nearly verbatim, by the Michigan Townships Association that we all hold and revere so greatly. I don't think you need to hear comments from any other lawyer on that topic.
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
I agree with Trustee Mansour, Trustee Thomas, and our attorney. I have all the confidence in the world in Mr. Laddie in terms of guiding us and guiding this township and some of the decisions we make to make sure we're not breaking any laws and are always have the interest of the residents at heart. So I also would be in favor of limiting the privileged presentation to just the matter at hand, which is the fire and what was the other one? Police and fire.
Okay.
It sounds like there's consensus that we don't want to hear the opinion, so make sure that if he's here to present, it's only for those two items. Okay, ready to move on? Okay, under operational issues, we're going to have, the board will consider, well, we'll have the treasurer's report and a recap of the expenditures of $1,601,180.31. Packet, you've got the detail for that. Under operational issues, the board will consider a motion to approve Director Sostak's request to order a post-retirement health benefit actuarial valuation prepared through Rodwin Consulting at a cost of $7,000 for the OPEB valuation and an additional $5,900 for the report containing financial reporting information pursuant to GASB 7475 for a total of $12,900. Mr. Lemata?
So again, it used to be every 3 years, now it's every 2 years that we're required to do the actuary evaluation. The last one was performed as of the close of business 12/31 of 2017. We need to do one to comply with the rules for December 31st of 2019. That actuarial firm, Rodman Consulting, the township's actually been using going back, certainly precedes me by at least a decade or more. The last firm, or the last cost for those services was $7,000. They proposed to do the exact same thing for the same price. There's an additional $5,900 for the report containing GASB 7475s, which is last year was the first year we had to comply with that. We have to do it every year moving forward. One of the advantages of using Rodwin is that they can do it now. We've already confirmed with Sandy that she has the ability to do it now and get it to us so that it can be included within our financial audit. That is very important, because if we don't do that, we're going to have to pay somebody to do a roll-up to be able to report to the state, and that will cost us an additional $7,000 to $8,000 to have that additional report repaired. So we'd respectfully ask the board to go ahead and approve this for the total of $12,900 and allow us to get those underway so that we can have it done so it becomes included as part of our annual financial audit report from Plant Moran.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Massey?
Question for Superintendent. Superintendent, 12,900, you said it was done every 3 years, now it's 2 years.
Used to be every 3 years was a requirement, now it's 2.
So is it cheaper or the same price, about the same price?
It's about the same price. It has changed, Trustee Massey, but it's changed because of reporting requirements. So they had to do an update last year, and so that last year was the first time when we had them come through and do it, or 2 years ago, and so they continue to tweak it. So the $7,000 is great that it's the same thing moving forward. But if you ask me what it would be 2 years from now, it depends on where they go with, the Governmental Accounting Standards Bureau. If they change, it's the way they change it, what we have to report.
Okay.
But I think that price, number one, I think the price is very fair based upon ones I've seen in the past or for the last 12 years. I think that it's a very reasonable price, and we can always go out and shop these when you want, but just know that once you shop, if you change at this point, what happens is for those roll-up reports that we have to prepare, a new actuarial firm can't do a roll-up on someone else's report. So then any time that you're going to make that switch, just know that there's going to be additional costs involved, because if we're required to do the roll-up for the GASB reporting for the state, then we're going to have once they change it, then they'll have to do their own full actuarial instead of just a roll-up when those things come up. There will be an added cost once we switch, or if we ever switch.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. Next, item B, the board will consider a resolution to join the Michigan Liquid Asset Fund, MyLAF and GovMIC program as requested by PFM Asset Management. Mr. Lehman?
And again, this is part of the board's switch to using PFM, and last December you approved to contract with Michael Berry from PFM to come in and assist with the investment process. They require this resolution to be part of that Michigan Liquid Asset Fund, which is really the mutual fund. It's basically the cash account where the cash can go in. They require the resolution from the entity. Big part of why they do that, and you'll note on there that there's actually positions are requested in there. The local unit has to put in the names of the people who are authorized to move within that fund. We have inserted, obviously, the treasurer, because you named the treasurer, Guzak, as your investment professional, and then Finance Director Kathy Sostak as the deputy. So we put both those names in. You could put additional name in there. You can put the supervisor or whoever you desire if you wanted to have a third person listed as successor as authorized officials. But we've done it with the two, and I think that's why we inserted these in, but those can certainly be anyone's names that you wish. We just assumed for continuity's sake that it would be your investment manager and deputy investment manager.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. It's not so much pertaining to this. As you were talking, something came to mind. Every 3 months, the treasurer will report out about the investment. Would it be practical for us to get a condensed report how the market is doing? In other words, it could be, okay, the market is doing fairly well, something to that extent. Not into depth, because that comes every 3 months. Since this is a new investment portfolio.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. You have online access, so you can go in and pull those snapshots anytime you want. If you would prefer in the short term to request that your treasurer provide just a monthly update, a snapshot of where your investments are and how they're performing, I think that could be done relatively easy and quickly. I haven't seen it yet, but invitation's going to go out tomorrow. We've got some dates for Mr. Berry to come up, hopefully as early as next week, and then Treasurer Guzak, Finance Director Sostak, and Michael Berry can meet and start this process of how it goes. And I really think that Treasurer Guzak would be able to go in and pull that report, monthly, if that's what the board would like to see, at least in the short term or even long term. He's required by law at a minimum to report quarterly, which he has always done, and I think if the short term you want to look at it, shouldn't be an issue.
Well, it's like any other investment, like a personal investment. Sometimes you want to see personal investments, you saw the track it made daily or weekly. but not with this investment. It's just to update us, okay, how well did we do? We made this switch, so we have nothing in the depth, no 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, we're doing fairly well. The market went down a couple of times, but it has rebound, etc. Something to that effect. Nothing in the depth.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is just the online access. So I really think that once Treasurer Guzak has the opportunity to look at it, he can really provide. I think there's a lot of ways you can pull it up. I think he can provide you with that information.
You think, Treasurer, he's here, do you think that would be something you were willing to do?
I'd be willing to do it. I have no idea how their system works because they haven't even talked to me yet. But
Yes, I
I'm
understand.
sure I can get at the information and I'll make him print it and download it to me if I have to.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Mansour?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Guzak had his hand up, but I'll just jump in real quick here. I have a question, it's a little kind of a technical one, but there was a term in here about terms of extraction for this particular asset. And I'm just wondering if there's a little bit more about that, because it wasn't really clear to me about, do we really have the ability to, liquefy, is it as liquid as we need it to be?
Yeah, you can actually. This fund is basically a 24-hour notice within 24 hours. So we know that. It's a mutual fund. It's really a cash fund. We can get cash out of it anytime within 24 hours notice.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guzak?
2 questions. I don't know if it's 24 hours because when I go in, like if I go in now, I get it today. I would wire it today. So we'll clarify that with him. So it might not be 24 hours. It might be when we actually need it, okay? Which is usually on the Thursday. My question is why, I know he's investing the big chunk. This is the liquid part. I've got like 5 other liquid ones. I need to know what rate this guy's paying. And are we forced into using his liquid fund or can we use one of our liquid funds?
I can't answer that question for you. Your investment policy that's been adopted by the board is what directs the investments, and they've selected PFM as the company that's working with you as the investment official to invest the funds in their funds. Whether it's their mutual fund or someone else's,
Well, it's
I don't know
theirs
what
because
else.
PFM's controlling that investment fund, plus it's controlling the other one. So we've got 100% invested with them. And I thought when I talked to him like a year ago, he said we didn't have to be in that. But could you clarify that? And I'd like to see what the rate was on that fund and maybe the past year's history, just to see.
Well, as a portion of your overall investments, you're going to keep money in a mutual fund, and
I know-
all this is a resolution
Right, I
to
know, but
approve
this-
that we can use it.
But this
As
is-
far as where you guys invest, that's going to be between you and Michael Berry from PFM.
No, I think this particular one is a liquid fund asset, okay, which is similar to my Michigan class asset.
Correct.
Okay, and so they have a different mix, they might have a different mix, and it's liquid, okay? I just want to know what rate he's going to give us and what his past history rate was compared to what I could get with Michigan class or I could get with another bank, because I have liquid funds with banks and Michigan class.
And I think when you meet with him next week, you'll be able to have any of those questions answered.
Well, I wouldn't want to sign this or agree to it unless I know what the rate is.
Well, you're not putting any money in there by agreeing to, you have to pass a resolution that says that we have authorized individuals to utilize this fund as part of their investment portfolio. I don't have anything to do with that, Treasurer Guzak.
Right,
The board created the investment policy and hired Mr. Berry,
My simple question
and
is,
I don't have an answer for that question.
okay, well, maybe you could ask him what his rate is.
Well, he's
Because
going to
I-
be in here next week, right?
No, I.
And as you know, the rates they change.
Well, yeah, but I can pull up Michigan class and I can go back the whole year. I can see every
And you'll
day.
be able to pull this one up as well.
Well, can you just get that for me so I can look at it?
I think, sure I can, but I think
good.
it might be the easiest for you to
Mr. Massey.
contact Mr. Berry.
Right.
I'm
Mr.
hearing
Massey.
something that I don't like, and let me be blatant about this. I think the superintendent just spoke truthfully that he has nothing to do with it. It's the treasurer and the director of finance,
Correct.
okay? Now, for the treasurer to ask you to go and get some information,
What?
we creating a bigger problem here, because here's what's going, when you start this, when you start going down this path, the treasurer is gonna always fall back to the superintendent, and the superintendent has no contact with the
Well-
investing company.
Well, the problem is.
That's the way I see it. So you should be calling.
I've never been able to talk to them, okay? And so everybody set this up. Your finance director set the whole thing up. They talk to him. I don't talk to Barry. I'm just
Why
asking
not?
for a rate. Okay.
Let's
Is it
do
okay
this.
if I call him to get
Let's-
a rate?
Let's do this. We've got an investment
Why
committee.
don't you call them?
Let's get our investment committee together next week. Is that good with you, Mr. Massey?
Yes, because,
Mr. Atkins? are
yes,
you
let's get it
available next week
together,
to,
because I was under the impression that the treasurer
Thursday or Friday.
and the director of finance would be
next week,
communicating.
or-
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
Kind of a quick question. So just so I'm clear on this, this resolution here was to join the Michigan Liquid Asset Fund. That was the resolution that was being asked here. Don't we already have the treasurer and the finance director set up as our investment officers?
But
We do.
that's for a different fund, I believe.
That's for all of
That's a
PFM, our contract with PFM,
Okay.
but
This
they
is a particular
require,
fund. Got it.
yeah, they require this one
Thank you.
because it's the cash moving in and out is my assumption.
It's a school
So
system.
we've got an
it's
agreement with
fund.
PFM, but PFM needs this
Wants
agreement.
this one
Well,
for this
PFM
fund.
runs that other fund.
Real
Thank you,
quick.
Thomas.
Did, so Earl, so the treasurer just said that he doesn't have permission to call this gentleman. Who does he got to talk to call the guy?
That's what I'm asking. Is it okay if I call him?
Yeah.
Yeah, you.
I don't know if it's on my
you and
call, but.
The finance director are
Well, you
working
can
with
see,
him.
I have never worked with him. Only time I came in is when he sat in front of you, gave his
Okay.
presentation, and you said we're going forward.
Well, it wasn't
That's-
me, the committee.
Well, can he call him? Can he call him?
You're the treasurer,
He's
just call him.
supposed to. I mean, he's talked with them about the cash flow analysis. I mean,
No, actually, it came from the finance director.
Well,
okay.
Okay, so, and then just clear this up for me. So Earl's the chairman and Kathy Sostak's the vice chair, right? Or
Well, they're
deputy
different
vice?
titles, but investment professional.
Investment
I
official
thought we
and
gave him some
deputy.
title.
yeah,
Investment official and deputy investment
Deputy,
official.
that was pretty
But you might
close.
have to change your title, because on there it says she's
Oh
got
my
finance
God, Earl,
director.
just
She
call me
might want to have a
That's her
slash.
title, but.
Just call
You
him.
wanna-
Just call him,
you
Earl.
wanna-
He works for you now, Earl.
So anyways, we will
Works
have
for you.
to clarify what their interest is, what have you, we will get together
I just want a
a
rate.
committee meeting and meet.
Dude.
So, but we need to have this if we do go this route, so regardless, we need to have it in place.
So there's no other way.
Well,
So it
we
doesn't
need to have
matter
it in
what the
place.
rate is. You're telling me it doesn't matter what the rate is because you want to go with this fund no matter what?
Well, they change.
No, I'm just saying as of right now.
We need to have the agreement in place whether we use them or not.
So you're not going to answer my question. That's fine.
hey, Mr.
No, I
Chair,
answered it.
let me make a casual, something sort of casual here that we probably should follow.
Go ahead, Mr. Massey.
To me, if I'm wrong, I'd like for someone to correct me, superintendent or the supervisor. We cannot tell the treasurer when to meet with the finance director. The treasurer has the authority to meet with the finance director and discuss the investment as his or her leisure, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret it. Once we put their names down, basically the superintendent is out of it. He doesn't bring any information back to the board unless it's someone just voluntarily, just out of the clear blue sky, just want to ask him a question, and he will refer you to the treasurer and the finance director. That's the way I understood it.
I do not have a role in the investment process
Right.
as the superintendent.
I know, I was just asking if I could get the rate. That's all I was asking. That was it. And if we could use a different fund, and I guess we can. So that was my two questions.
Right.
Well, let me ask another question. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. It sounds like that's still a disagreement.
No, there's no disagreement.
Let me ask the superintendent a question, if you don't mind. Can we have the finance director here Thursday?
Sure.
Okay, let's clear this up. Let's have the finance director here Thursday. That's satisfactory to the
Call the
board.
guy, Earl.
Okay.
I'm gonna call him.
All right. I think one of the things we have to watch is, I mean, we put a policy in place to use PFM. And if we're going to micromanage every decision that they make, then we might as well not have had a policy to use them. They're simply saying that if we're going to use this fund requires this agreement. But we'll talk more on Thursday and we'll get some answers probably. Okay, item C, the board will consider a motion to accept the 2019 Planning Commission annual report as presented. Everybody received a copy of it in their packet. I don't know if anybody had any questions. I don't know, is Mr. Lloyd prepared if anybody has any questions to be here on Thursday? Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Or
I
Mr.
just,
Lloyd being our director for building and planning.
Yeah, let me just make a comment here that I think that the, of course, I'm kind of a member of the Planning Commission, so maybe a little bit biased, but I think it was a pretty good report. But I would like to, as we go forward here, try and connect a lot more of what the Planning Commission is doing to, hard deliverables for our residents so they can kind of see stuff. I mean, having meetings is nice, going to things, having reviews is good, but I mean, our township residents have a right to expect that, we're gonna approve, we're gonna be able to approve new developments and kind of move things really expeditiously. And the planning report at the end of the year ought to reflect how we're doing on that. So, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Do we need to have Mr. Lloyd here on Thursday?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll go ahead and, if anybody has any questions as they go through the report, you've had it for a few days, I take it that if you had any, you probably would have brought them forward. Next item on the agenda, the board will hear an update from the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee.
If I could just make a comment on that, I know this is a topic for Thursday's meeting, but I would just like to make a couple quick items. So, this subcommittee is meeting, very regularly. We met on the 20th. We met again on the 6th. At the last meeting, which Scott, you were at, Lonnie was at, myself, Dennis, Paula was there too, just making sure that we're doing things right. But we did agree on a vision, Parks and Recreation, that enriches the community. We agreed on a mission statement, administer a coordinated system of outstanding programs, parks, and facilities in response to the passive and active recreational interests of the Grand Blanc community. So we're moving along in these high-level things. Now we are getting down into the measurable goals that we're expecting from our Parks and Rec activity. These will be things like programs, it'll be operating professionally, kind of a whole host of things. We want to make sure that we can, and facilities as well, we're going to make sure that these are measurable goals so that as we bring the director in that we'll be able to give crystal clear direction on our expectations and et cetera. So again, just wanted to let everyone know that we're moving this. We are operating with a sense of urgency because we know we have an end of the month and a February timeframe that's looking us in the face. We have some information coming in about Parks and Rec software, so we're trying to get the foundational stuff done as well as the vision and mission. And so just to let you know that we are meeting again on Thursday the 9th at 5:30, Kathy.
Do I get to go to this one?
Yeah, so we'll get it as an open meeting because we have had a lot of interest, and besides Lonnie and myself, Ken Scott's been very active in this, so we want to have it available in case other members of the board are also interested to attend. Thank you.
I will post that immediately.
Can do that. Okay.
May I have
Ms. Lane?
May I ask the board or Mr. Mansell with this subcommittee, over the holidays, with all of these things going on with Parks and Rec, we were leaving the director's position open to be filled when it's filled. I was thinking that possibly we would like one deadline, like the end of February, to get somebody submitting something. And if we don't have enough qualified candidates, we can then extend it. But letting it go with an indefinite time frame, to me, as the more I thought about it, now that we have a little bit more definitive information, that we should set. I don't care if it's the end of February or March 15th or any other date, so that we get applicants submitting by a specific deadline.
So Clerk Lane, if I could, sorry, Trustee Atkins, did you want to jump in there?
If I,
Go ahead, Mr. Atkins.
if it would satisfy Clerk Lane that we take that up on Thursday in the committee, and then we can maybe start framing some of that date.
And I would tell you that you remember correctly, in this room, we agreed that we were going to leave it open until filled. I believe we've already received, I have indications we already received a number of applicants, so I think it's the posting and our compensation is attracting candidates. But also, it's interestingly enough, on the township website, for Parks and Recreation Director, there is a closing date of January 27th shown. So we're not 100% consistent on this. So I think when we come back Thursday, we'll try and get it lined up.
All right, I appreciate that, because I had no knowledge of there being any resumes to date, so I just didn't want it to keep lagging. Thank you.
The next item that we're going to add to the agenda for Thursday is, everybody received a copy this evening, you can take a look at it for Thursday, but it's basically employment agreement for our administrative assistant for fire department. Mr. Lehman, any comments?
It's the exact same employment agreement that we've used for all of the other administrative assistants for the township. There's nothing different in this. And you would be asked to review it and then authorize, the motion would be to authorize Supervisor Bennett and Clerk Lane to sign the agreement.
Okay. Any discussion?
No?
Okay, and I'll have something probably on the strategic planning for Thursday. Other than that, going back to today's agenda, I think there's some written reports that possibly we'll have, if anybody has any questions on any of those, we can have various directors there to speak to those reports. I know the fire department's report was very thorough.
Attached.
I know Chief Burdett's here, and I think he even got a TV interview out of it. And highlighting the last 6 months of our township fire department.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Just while Chief is here, if he wouldn't mind, I was going to, in my typical fashion, kind of send out the note here about different things here. But I did notice that there was a significant increase in the non-emergency calls in December versus last year.
I'll have to research it to
In
get
your
an answer
report,
for
I
you.
mean, it just seemed like a little.
Trustee Mansard,
You know, we've got a trend kind of going down. It's all, but that
Right.
one kind of, for some reason, kind of jumped up. So
yeah, I'll have to take a look at it. I mean, there's numerous things that fall into a non-emergency. It could be a CO alarm going off that we don't run or we don't respond to in lights and sirens. It could be a simple fire alarm that we don't respond to with lights and sirens.
well, I mean, I don't want to miss something that should be responded to, but if we're getting caught up in spending too much time in things that are not emergencies and things that we ought to be treating differently,
Yeah.
just want to
No, that's not a
understand that.
I'll
Okay.
I'll do some research on it. That's no problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. So we'll adjourn the meeting if there's a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, there's been a motion, second.
Dies for lack of support.
There's support?
Support?
No.
I thought we were having an executive session.
Yeah, I would like to see if we could do like a 10-minute executive session for employee contract questions.
Labor negotiation or?
Yes.
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 Labor negotiation.
Labor negotiation.
That is one of the criteria for an executive session.
On a labor agreement?
Negotiation, yeah.
Okay. There's a motion for that
Mr.
So moved.
Ack-
and a supported?
Well, Mr. Thomas would be the support then if Mr. Atkins is making the motion to go into executive session
Correct.
for labor negotiations. It's a roll call vote, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself? Mr. Chair?
No.
Okay.
Doesn't Liberty get a vote?
Huh?
Doesn't Liberty?